Hello, gunfighters. Welcome back to Gunfighter Life, the podcast where we talk about gunfighting the right way, with God at the center, with Judeo-Christian values and real-world first-hand experience. Today's going to be a fun, lighthearted, I think, discussion about some cool guns that have kind of been brushed over and forgotten because of newer stuff that has come out. But newer doesn't always mean better. Before we get into today's topic, don't forget to like, subscribe, leave a review of the podcast. Check out goodshepherdtraining.com while you're listening. I'm going to plug in the bio. If you want to skip it, skip around 3 minutes and 45 seconds ahead. First and foremost, I am a servant of God, preacher, a fisher of men. God is number one in my life, and everything that I do in this podcast is no different, and I don't apologize for that. A little bit about me in the background. I grew up, I guess what you would consider a heathen. Didn't grow up a Christian, but I grew up in the southeastern United States, what most would consider very poor. Hunting and fishing and shooting. Joined the Marine Corps at 17, did a couple of combat tours in Iraq. After my combat tours in Iraq, I was an urban warfare instructor for the United States Marine Corps under Mojave Viper. I also served in law enforcement for several years in LAPD. I worked patrol assignments and more specialized assignments, where by God's grace, He got me through some nasty places in this world of war zones and some of the nastiest streets in the country. Not because I am better, because God chose to have mercy on me and had a purpose for me, and I'm thankful for that. After my time in law enforcement, I was a private contractor for federal government, for a 3-letter government agency I won't specify, doing private contracting work. I'm very much involved in guns and gunfighting. I also served in the U.S. Army, both full-time and part-time National Guard. I should say my primary MOS is in both branches of the military or infantry, as of one sort or another. Specialized infantry in the Marine Corps and an MOS that no longer exists. I started competition shooting even before I joined the Marine Corps at 17. I won my first gold medal even before I joined the Marine Corps at 17. I've been blessed by God with the talents He's given me to win more shooting competitions than I can remember. I've won most of my competitions in rifle and pistol, but I've also competed in archery and shotgun and even muzzleloader, knife throwing, hatchet throwing. I've competed in all that. I've also been a professional big game hunter and guide. Like I said, I grew up hunting and fishing and shooting. I've done it to put meat on the table because I like to put food on the table with the talents God's given me. I don't apologize for that. I've done it as a professional hunter and guide. I've slain all manner of beast and guided for all manner of beast. Bear and wolf and elk and deer, mule deer, whitetail deer. I've slain ram and fallow deer and countless animals, and I don't apologize for that either. FBI certified firearms instructor, NRA, and a bunch of other 3-letter government agency certifications. Blessed be the Lord my rock, who trains my hands for war and my fingers for battle. Psalm 144. I've been blessed to be the commander of a tactical team, an SRT, special response team, in a large metropolitan area, where our primary job was to stop active shooters. But again, first and foremost, I'm a servant of God, called by God to share the good news, preacher, a fisher of men. With that, we will roll into the day's topic. Now, we're very blessed to live in what I would consider the golden age of firearms. When I look back at 20 years ago, 20-something years ago, when I reminisce and get nostalgic, even 10, 15 years ago, when I was in the Marines, I was issued an M16A2. That's what I went to war in Iraq with, an iron-sighted M16A2, and it's an okay weapon. And I look at when I was a police officer and what we had for backup guns, concealed carry guns. You had Your choice of, Smith & Wesson J-frame, maybe a Colt Detective Special, or you had the Glock 26 or 27, maybe a Walther PPK. And there's probably a few other ones like a Makarov or something, but there wasn't anywhere near the amount of choices we have today, and good choices, and I like that, and that's a good thing. But it seems like nowadays, every week, every month, there's a new hot polymer striker-fired handgun that this YouTuber or that YouTuber is raving about. And again, I like that we live in this era with so many choices. But just because something's newer doesn't mean that it's better. My current job now is I manage a firearms and training company. So you might imagine I get my hands on quite a few of the new handguns that come in. I have a rental wall. I buy used guns quite a bit. So, I mean, that's the world that I'm in. It amazes me every time a new handgun comes out, the people that just have to have that brand new handgun. Got me thinking about the topic today. Yesterday, somebody came in, just wanted to get rid of their old Beretta 92. Just a classic Beretta 92 FS. I'm not really sure if there's any difference at all except for the stampings on the slide between that and the military M9. But I also carried one of those in Iraq, and I picked that up. And that is just an elegant weapon. I've said it before, in my opinion, and a lot of people will dissent from this, I think it is the finest combat handgun ever made. I really like the Berettas. They are reliable, they are beautiful, they are very accurate. They, in my opinion, have a superior operating system than the most tilting barrel, most common systems. But I realize I'm in the minority in that. But even if you don't think they're the best, I don't think you can argue with the quality and the elegance of a Beretta 92. And that's the first one on my list. It's also, if you listen to the Alpha Male podcast, the one in my baby bug out bag, I have a Wilson Combat Beretta 92. I wonder how many of these people that are clamoring for these new polymer striker-fired handguns, you took them actually out to the range and had them shoot that and then shoot a Beretta 92, how many of them would be like, wow, that's a nice gun? And they are nice guns. They were nice guns 20 years ago, and they're nice guns now. Still as smooth. They still shoot just as good. If you're into optics, which I think is a big advantage on a handgun, after giving it a fair shot and trying it and being against it for a long time, I admit I was wrong. They have newer models that you can mount optics on. So that's my first pick of forgotten but still really good. The next one is going to be more of a class of weapons, and this is going to be the SIG 2 series. Right now, everybody, that's what I'm going to call it. I don't know if they call it that. Everybody right now is clamoring for the SIG 3 series, the SIG 320s, which basically is the same as the M17, the M18, the SIG 320s, and all of their iterations, the X5, the 320 versions, all those. They are the new hot thing, and they're a decent gun, I got to admit. I ran one for a polymer striker fire gun. They're a decent gun. They're a good gun. But don't forget about what I'm going to call the SIG 2 series, the SIG 220s. The 210 is a great gun, but probably not for most people. But the SIG 220, the SIG 229, the SIG 226s, those are fine, elegant, metal-on-metal, very well-crafted guns. And since a lot of people are moving to the newer 3 series plastic modular systems, then you can sometimes get good deals on used SIG 2 series. They're a great gun. I just saw some on CDNN. I think I told the patrons about this a long time ago. Which one of the perks of being on Patreon, but I told them about this weeks ago. But last time I checked on CDNN, they had SIG 2 series trade-ins for $499. That's a fine combat weapon. If you don't know, it has a long history. A lot of people think it should have won over the Beretta. I don't, but I still think it's a fine gun. I think it's a fantastic gun. In fact, my everyday carry gun right now is a SIG 226 with an optic on it. So the SIG 2 series, the 229s, the 226s, they have a long history in military and law enforcement. In fact, that was my first issued duty gun for LAPD was a Glock 22, which I'm not a big fan of. But one of my duty guns was a SIG 229. I didn't really appreciate it at the time because I wasn't really a good enough shooter to take advantage of it. It is a fine gun. I would never say that it wasn't reliable or effective. And there's other SIG 2 series. The 229 and 226 are the most prevalent, but if you are a 1911 kind of guy, check out the 220, which comes in 45 and 10 millimeter. It's a single stack 45/10 millimeter, much like a 1911. No, I like 1911, so I don't own a SIG 220, but I won't say that they're not a great gun. Also, the SIG 238, if you want a sleek, elegant little carry gun, and I know there's a lot of these new plastic double stack, super high capacity small guns, but I'd really have you look at and handle and actually shoot them side by side to a SIG 238. SIG 238 is a fine gun. I think a lot of the new polymer striker fired handguns on the market have really good triggers compared to polymer striker fired triggers even 10 years ago. They have a much better trigger, but I still think they are not as good and refined and as clean as a good, single action trigger, good single action trigger pull, or even a nice smooth double action, single action gun. The next one that's kind of glossed over nowadays and forgotten, this used to be referred to as the baby Glock, is going to be the Glock 26, and it's still one of my guns that I will carry when I'm not carrying a full-size gun. The Glock 26 is a great gun. It was the original baby Glock, and then they came out with the Glock 43. Well, a little story about that. I had the Glock 26 for years, and the Glock 43 came out, and I thought, oh, this is great. It's, way thinner. It's going to be a more compact gun. That's great. And I went out and got it, and I shot it, and I almost immediately, if not immediately, went right back and sold it used. Yet, it is thinner, the Glock 43 and the 43X and the other iterations. And I'm not saying they're bad guns, but I'm saying that doesn't, just because they're newer, it doesn't make them better than the Glock 26. The Glock 26 is a little bit wider, but I still can pocket carry it. So I don't know if that makes much difference as far as carry goes, at least not for me. But also, because it's wider, you get that recoil distributed in a much wider area in your hand as far as percentages go. And I find it a much more pleasant gun to shoot than the Glock 43. It's also a little bit bigger and a little bit heavier, so you do get that, I think, better recoil management out of it. And the big advantage of it is the Glock 26, unlike the 43 and the 43X and those, it takes standard double-stack 9mm Glock magazines. So if you have a 17, if you have a bunch of 17 or 19 mags, it takes those mags. You don't need special mags. You can, carry your Glock 26 with a standard magazine in it that's very short and compact, and your reload, since that usually doesn't matter if you're putting it in a pocket, can be a full, 17-round Glock 17 mag. If you're looking for compatibility, if you care a lot about that, you could have your everyday carry gun as that Glock 26, and you could have in your bug-out bag or in your vehicle kit either an SBR or pistol caliber carbine, or even a full-size, Glock 17, Glock 34 even. They all take the same mags. So that's an advantage. I don't want you to think that just because the Glock 43 is newer or the 43X is newer, that they are necessarily a better gun than the Glock 26. And here's another one that's kind of been forgotten. And when it came out, it was kind of like the revolutionary thing. It was great. It was like, one of those things when it came out that it kind of changed the market. We've kind of forgotten about it nowadays. And it's the Smith & Wesson M&P Shield. Just the regular M&P Shield. The standard model with the standard, magazines that holds, I forget how many it holds, 7-8 rounds. But for a concealed carry gun, it's a great shooting gun. It handles like a little 1911 to me. It's good. It's functional. They're reliable. They're a great gun. I know now they have, the SIG 365s and the SIG whatever and the Hellcats and the guns that are about the same size that hold way more ammo. But if you look at most defensive, and this is not, I'm not saying you shouldn't be able to have high capacity magazines. You should be able to have whatever capacity you want. But in most concealed carry defensive shooting situations, 7 rounds. Hopefully you don't ever even get to needing anywhere near that much. Now what? You're talking to the guy that still carries a full-size gun with a reload. Most of the time, because I live in Arizona, a very gun-friendly state, and I can just throw a shirt on. It's not a big deal for me. But I also routinely, when I'm going out doing wind sprints or whatever, I'll carry a Smith & Wesson J-frame that holds 5 rounds. I would say a good gun that you shoot well and practice with and are familiar with is better than the next new hot thing that holds a few more rounds. The odds of you needing those few more rounds are slim. If you have to actually use your gun, the odds of you having to get a good first, second, third round hit is very likely, much more likely than you're going to dump a bunch of rounds and need a 15 plus 1 round super subcompact micro gun. Again, I'm not saying those new guns are bad. I'm just saying they're not always better. You know, especially if you see one used for a good price, don't gloss over the old M&P Shields. They are fantastic guns. And I already kind of gave it away, touched on it, because it's one of my, I have two. It was the very first handgun that I ever bought with my own money. When I became a cop, obviously when I was in the Marines, I was issued a sidearm. When I became a cop, they issued us our duty gun, but we had to buy our backup gun, and most of us in LAPD carried backup guns. And for most of us, that was a Smith & Wesson J-frame, and that's what mine was, and I still have it. I don't know all the different 3-letter designations. There are so many, but it's the regular stainless steel airweight with a hammer. Yes, I know I dissent from the tactical opinion, but I run hammers. I like hammers. I like having that single action capability. I have used it. I do like the precision that the single action offers me. I really like that option. I know they say it can snag in a pocket. I've been using them and carrying them and drawing them and practicing with them for a long time now, and I've never had it be an issue just by the way I grab it, and it's not an issue for me. If you want a hammerless model, I'm not going to fault you, but I still have it. It's in my wife's glove box. It's her because she routinely forgets her gun. I love her, but she does, so that one stays in the glove box. That way, if she needs a gun, it's in there. But it's the old Airweight 38 Special stainless steel J-frame. It's a freaking fantastic gun. Several years ago, after who knows how many years of carrying that, and it looks like it, I bought the Smith & Wesson J-frame. This one I do remember the model. It's a 360 PD. It's the 357 Magnum Scandium frame. It's 11 ounces and some change. It's super light. It's 11 ounces, and it's 357 Magnum, and it is commonly my go-to carry gun when I want a minimalist carry. As a professional big game hunter and guide, that was my most often carried gun, because I would have a full-size, center fire hunting rifle, and that would be in my pocket for finishing shots, for animals caught in snares, for finishing off a coyote, for whatever. It's a fantastic gun. Again, when I'm doing wind sprints or something like that, it's very easy to run in, work out in. I hold it in a little black case. It looks just like a cell phone. I run through big cities with it, again, where this is legal, in my hand, in a case. It doesn't even bat an eye because it's so tiny and so lightweight. It's smaller than a lot of cell phones. And it's 357 Magnum. And a revolver has quite a few advantages in close quarters, fighting on the ground type scenarios, which we did a whole episode you can go back and check out about CQB. But just because there's newer guns out there, even some of the people that I work with, I love them, but they're just like, what is this old antiquated thing? Everything's about the new polymer striker fire that holds 1 more or 2 more rounds. There's something to be said for a good, well-made Smith & Wesson J-frame revolver. Even a good other brand, a good, solidly built, reliable revolver. These guns are still good guns. I have plenty of polymer striker fired handguns. I'm not a gun collector, but I keep like a spare. I keep like a Glock, just a base stock, factory option night sights, no frills, Glock 17. I keep that for teaching students. That's one of the number one things people carry and shoot is Glock. So I have a standard Glock. I still have the Glock 26. But when it comes to my day-to-day carry, I don't have any of those new, tricked out guns. And I could. I have a SIG 226. That's my general EDC gun. It's a single action only, which is a little different than most SIG 226s. But it's a single action only, and I had it cut for an optic. It's a fantastic gun. I also have an M17, which is the military version of the 320. It's also a good gun, and I don't mind carrying it. But if I have the choice between the two, I like the 226, even though it's older. And the training that I've done, it is a little bit better for me, for shooting. So I hope this has inspired you. I hope that you appreciate the golden age that we live in with all these options, but I hope that you don't forget about some older classic options that are still great. And now might be a great time to buy them, because I've seen this happen before, where now is kind of the time where people don't really appreciate these guns as much as they should. Then you'll get to a point where people start appreciating them and they stop making them and the prices go way up. There was a time when you could get SKSs for under $100. There was a time when you could get Mosin Nagants for dirt cheap. Look around now and see what they cost. Like I said, right now, last time I checked, CDNN, you could get trade-in SIG 226s for $499. I have to believe in the future they'll stop making those, and there won't be a bunch of them on the surplus, police market. And then you're not going to find a SIG 226 for $499. If you've ever liked them, I'd say go to a range and try one. You can get good trade-in Beretta 92s. A lot of police agencies maybe still use them, but used them for a long time, and they're out there on the market, and they're a great gun. They're elegant, they're sleek, and the new Glock 45, whatever, I don't even know what the newest one is. That doesn't make it better than a Beretta 92 just because it's newer. That's not how that works. It might be a better choice for you, I don't know, but it's not carte blanche automatically better because it's newer. So I hope this has inspired you to maybe think a little bit different if you didn't already think that way. I'm not saying you have to like all those guns, but maybe one of them, or at least consider them. Don't think that because it's in the used rack or because it's been around for 20 years that it's not as good as the gun that just came out yesterday. Which is going to bring me to the tactical tip of the day. You've probably heard me say it a few times before. I don't know if I've ever mentioned it as a tactical tip, but I kind of buck the trend of most people that are into guns. My general rule of thumb, and I've learned this the hard way, probably more than once, is don't buy a gun when it first comes out. Don't buy it the first 3 years that it comes out. I don't care how good reviews it gets. I don't care how cool it's supposed to be. And I should caveat that if it's a gun you're going to trust your life on, if it's just a gun you're going to go to the range and put in a safe or show your buddies, doesn't really matter. But if it's a gun you're going to carry or use for home defense or think you might ever actually use in a real scenario, don't get a gun the first 3 years that it's out. Lots of guns when they first come out have problems, and it doesn't matter how good the manufacturer is. It happens with Glock, it happens with SIG, it happens with FN just had a recall, and they're like top-notch manufacturers, and they are good manufacturers. But like anything else, when it's new, it needs to be thoroughly vetted. Let somebody else figure out that it has a problem and it doesn't work, or that it goes off when you drop it on the ground. You don't need to be the one to find that out. So that's my tactical tip of the day. When a new gun model comes out, wait a couple years. If it's really that good, it'll still be around in 3 years and they'll improve on it and it'll be awesome. And you'll know you can trust your life to it. In general, some guns are individuals and some individual ones will have issues. But you get what I'm saying. It's very common that when a new gun model comes out, it has problems. When the 320 first came out, it had problems. So that's my tactical tip of the day. The tactical verse of the day from Philippians. Being confident of this very thing, that he who began a good work in you will complete it until the day of Christ Jesus. If you are God's elect, if he has chosen you, if you belong to Jesus Christ, be confident. He will never leave you nor forsake you. With that, men, thanks for listening and have a blessed day.